There was a time when Israel didn't have kings to rule over them, but they had leaders to help them. This is a story about some things that happened during that time. This is the story of Ruth. Now there wasn't enough food in the land of Judah, so a man went to live for a while in the country of Moab. He was from Bethlehem in Judah. His wife Naomi and 2 sons went with him. After moving to Moab to live, the man died, leaving Naomi with her 2 sons. Her sons got married to women from Moab. These women were named Orpah and Ruth. They lived in Moab for about 10 years, and then Naomi's sons died. Naomi was left without her husband and sons. While in Moab, Naomi heard that God had started providing food for his people in Judah, so she decided to go back to Bethlehem in Judah. Naomi and her daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth, all got ready and left Moab to return to Bethlehem. But before going too far, Naomi turned to Orpah and Ruth and told them to go back to Moab, back to their own homes and their own families and their own gods, saying, "My life is more bitter than yours. The Lord's power has turned against me." After some crying, Orpah eventually agreed and went back to Moab, but Ruth didn't. Ruth said to Naomi, "Don't try to make me leave you and go back. Where you go, I'll go. Where you stay, I'll stay. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God." So Naomi returned to Bethlehem with Ruth. At last they arrived in Bethlehem. The whole town was stirred up, and the women in the town asked, "Can this possibly be Naomi?" "Don't call me Naomi," she told them. "Call me Mara, because God has made my life very bitter. God has made me suffer. The Mighty One has brought trouble on me." Naomi and Ruth arrived in Bethlehem just when people were beginning to harvest the barley. When in Bethlehem, Ruth began picking up any leftover grain in the fields. She worked behind those cutting and gathering the grain. As it turned out, she was working in the field of a man named Boaz, who was a relative on Naomi's husband's side, and a very important man. He saw Ruth picking up the grain and asked the men working there, "Who is this woman?" They responded, "She's from Moab. She came back with Naomi." Boaz saw how hard Ruth was working, and he showed her kindness, making sure she had what she needed while there, including giving her food to eat and water to drink. Ruth asked Boaz, "Why are you so kind to me?" Boaz replied, "I've been told all about you. I've heard about everything you have done for Naomi. I know that you left your family. I know that you left your country. You came to live with people you didn't even know." Boaz recognized that Ruth was relying on God for safety and protection. God provided for Ruth, and Ruth continued to trust him. When Ruth returned home to Naomi, she gave Naomi the leftover food she got from Boaz and the grain she collected. Naomi saw that Ruth had collected a lot of grain and asked Ruth, "Whose field were you at? Who was it that was so kind to you?" Ruth told Naomi that the man's name was Boaz. "May the Lord bless him," Naomi said. "The Lord is still being kind to his people." She continued, "That man is a close relative of ours. He's one of our family protectors." One day, Naomi spoke to Ruth. "I must find a home for you," she said. "You have been working with Boaz, who is a relative of ours. Wash yourself, put on some perfume and your best clothes, And tonight, go to the field. Don't let Boaz see you, but when he sleeps, go to him and lie down at his feet. He will tell you what to do." Ruth did just as Naomi told her to. In the middle of the night, something surprised Boaz and woke him up. Then he turned and found a woman lying at his feet. "Who are you?" he asked. "I'm Ruth," she said. "You are my family protector, so take good care of me by making me your wife." "Dear woman, may the Lord bless you," he replied. "It's true that I'm a relative of yours, but there's a family protector who is more closely related to you than I am. Stay here for the night. In the morning, if he wants to help you, good, let him help you. But if he doesn't want to, then I'll do it. You can be sure that the Lord lives, and you can be just as sure that I'll help you." Ruth returned to Naomi and told her all that had happened. They knew that they could trust God to look after them, and they knew that Boaz would take care of everything. Boaz had a meeting and discussed the situation with the relative he told Ruth about. The man didn't want to marry Ruth, so the matter was settled. Boaz said to the elders and all the people, "Today you are witnesses. You have seen that I have bought land from Naomi, and I have taken Ruth to become my wife." So Boaz married Ruth, and they had a son called Obed. Ruth and Naomi knew they were very blessed. God had helped them when they needed it most, and he looked after them. God did so much for them, and he cares about us too. God really is worthy of our trust.